Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and joining me here for some Monday morning quarterbacking, even though it was a Saturday game, a little bit of an unusual set of circumstances. We got a short week, so we've got a review and a preview episode here. But first, let me welcome back one Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, I'd ask how you're doing, but as has been, I have a pretty good idea what that's like.
Yes, so it is interesting to me today, of course, being Immaculate Reception Day, but it is also a day when I can say, I got a lot of problems with you people, and I'm going to tell you about them.
I was, hopefully you didn't hear me squeaking in my chair. I was trying to reach back here. It's been part of the festive decorations. Of course, December 23rd here. That one
Festivus
right here.
poll.
It is. It doesn't. It's like the officially licensed one. It doesn't work the way it used to. Unfortunately, it used to make all kinds of noises that'll probably get me a copyright strike on YouTube. So I'll throw this back here in a second. But yeah, Brian, looking back at the Ravens, looking ahead at the Chiefs. Oh boy, we already knew this 3 games, 11-day span was going to be rough back when we looked at it when the schedule was released, and even doing our, little guesstimation of how the season might go back in August. And it's kind of going the way that we had anticipated, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, because the Ravens simply hadn't beaten the Steelers in so many games, we picked the Ravens to lose against the Steelers there. But that was the only game we originally picked as a potential win out of the 3. That would have been perfect. That is not the case. But as you and I were discussing later into the evening, as some of our wounds were soothed by a college playoff victory by a certain university.
University.
Yeah, the certain college university. The real truth is, when you have as many missing parts, when you're really down to one quarter of your starting secondary, missing, starting defensive linemen, missing Pickens, TJ was clearly not 100%, even though he played. It's very, very difficult to go into somebody else's house and win. And I'll be honest with you, they still had a chance if you take away the 2 big problems that occurred, compliments of our boy Russ. The cooking was off. The spices were bad. It was not Russ's best performance, but he said it after the game, this one's on him. And I'm going to agree. I'm going to lay this one right at his feet. The pick 6 and the fumble, really the 2 turning points in this game that, if those aren't there, if Russ is at his peak, if Russ is cooking well, they got a shot. I'm not saying they win, but they got a shot to overcome all of that other stuff. Plus, they managed to get one of the 3 fumbles that they failed to get, that the Ravens covered themselves on. Who knows?
Oh, man. Yeah, you could be a lot to chew off there.
I was prepared.
Yeah, you are prepared. Well, first of all, let's pull this up. That was where our predictions all the way back when we had them losing against Dallas. They were pretty much winning everything in that first half of the season. We said this was probably ambitious, 12 wins, but it's still on the table, right? It's still there.
It is.
In
fact, it's a requirement if they want the division.
Yeah, you would think. All right, I'm going to go to some post-game show stuff, too, with Mike Pursuta, Charlie Batch. I listened to them because I couldn't stand the college pregame stuff with the playoffs or whatever after that Texas game was over with. But, man, I'll tell you, Desmond Howard talking about, anything Ohio State, just I can't do it. It just doesn't work for me. So, anyways, we did have them going to Cleveland and losing. We actually had them losing in Cincinnati. So this is the one where you kind of swap a couple wins, losses around here. Philadelphia, we didn't think was going to be a game they would compete in. And then this Kansas City Chiefs game that's coming up on Christmas Day here is one that we initially had them maybe losing. But Mike Pursuta said in the post game, because some of the things that you had said actually kind of ring true, right? There were two things that really stuck with me. One was, if you've ever looked at a team that looks like they're beatable, it's the Kansas City Chiefs with their 15 or 16 straight one-score win streak in the going back to last year, right? And then the second thing that Pursuta said that was kind of interesting to me was, if you're going to have benchmark games where you're trying to figure out if this is a playoff caliber team, you can't be without the players that put you into that playoff conversation. And there's a lot of that. People will say that's excuses. And there was a caller that called in, and I would love it if this guy was actually listening to this show. I doubt it, because he doesn't sound like he has one iota of intelligence. But it was all Mike Tomlin's fault, of course, for this game.
I'm glad you called him out that way in case he is listening.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They probably, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't.
Are you out there?
Well, because it's the usual, and if he is, it's just the usual person that bitches and complains about Mike Tomlin and says this is all Tomlin's fault. It went all the way back to Stephon Tuitt and Javon Hargrave and said, well, they didn't replace those guys. I'm like, you didn't even like those guys when they were here. Like, you guys have such, like, 2020 hindsight. It's so ridiculous. And to talk about Mike Tomlin, and he talked about the defensive line, and then he said, you've got a 37-year-old is your best defensive lineman, and because he's so old and washed up, you have to send blitz packages. And I'm like, have you been? Do you watch the games?
Did you watch a game this year? Look, please let's just. All I really want to do now is get this gentleman's home address, and so that we can provide it to Cam on his podcast, and Cam can go explain to him how washed up he really is.
Oh my goodness. And he's aged him by a couple years too, but man, Cam's maybe playing his best football. You know, his naysayers should be out. And because he plays his best football, and because they've gotten guys like, they brought in Larry Ogunjobi, can't help that's one of the guys that was missing. And pre-game, Brian, you said it. I didn't want to respond to it because I hate the bad juju. I hate I want good vibes going into the game. But that inactives list came out, and I had about the same sinking feeling that you did. I just didn't acknowledge you when you said it to me. Yeah. I was just like, I don't want to acknowledge this. I want to bury my head in the sand and pretend everything's all right. And if not for the turnovers, the ball rolls a different way, a couple of different ways in this game. I'll come back to that because I've got the snap counts here, and I've got, we had the players that were inactive, Deshaun Elliott and Larry Ogunjobi. And it's just, that's what this caller was overlooking, particularly defensive line. Keanu Benton. They drafted Keanu Benton, dude. He was a top 50 pick. Like, the guy had absolutely no clue what he was talking about. And we complain enough that they usually only send those four guys. Why are they sending those four guys? Because you send a blitz, you let Lamar Jackson pick it up, and he's able to just off to the races, and you have to spy for him. If anything they're guilty of, they were playing like the starting lineup in this game was, hold on a second. It was Keanu Benton and Cam Hayward with Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt. Okay. This guy wants them to play 4-3 because 3-4 is antiquated. Did they play 3-4? A little bit. Maybe Derrick Henry in there. They put Montravius Adams in as a nose tackle at times. I'll pull up his snap counts here as well. But you had Landon Roberts, Patrick Queen, and Peyton Wilson all on the field at the same time, which is, been effective for the Steelers at different times. Then you had Joey Porter, who ends up getting hurt, and we don't know the severity of that, but misses time in this game, tries to come back, could not. Beanie Bishop and James Pierre, along with Micah Fitzpatrick. This secondary was completely ravaged. You're against primarily a run team, but when you can't bring those other guys up into the box to help assist with one of the, the leagues, maybe a historically great. I think Derrick Henry has carved himself up out of a niche enough to be considered one of the, era's great running backs in an era where it's a lot of committee running backs. It hurts not having a physical play, man-to-man guy and a guy that will go out and willingly tackle and head hunt you like a Joey Porter or a Deshaun Elliott. And those really hurt in this game. And when people call in and they, you want next man up. Did you say that? Or maybe it was my cousin Brad, but it was like, maybe if you're replacing one guy, but when you're replacing several and you have to have Corey Trice come out there and it's his NFL debut, that spells trouble.
Next man up is great. It works. but you have to have complementary pieces that start to shoulder some of the load for the next man up, because you can't really expect them to truly be the next man up, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes along. Yeah, you expect the guys to perform, but you also expect the guys around them to perform. When you have too many of the guys around them that are now performing, you get the issues we said. Cam Sutton's playing out of position. You've got Trice out there. You've got lack of communication. You got breakdowns left and right. You're not going to avoid that when you have 3/4 of your defensive backfield not starting or not playing. And the concern now is Joey. Although if Joey is the only one that's missing come this week, that's better than 3/4 of the backfield missing last week.
Yeah.
And as you said, if you roll this back and we start to go through it, and as much as I do not want to belabor this game and go forward, just torturing ourselves with it, they could have easily gone a different way. This game could have easily gone a different way, despite all the limitations. It just was one of those games where the ball did not go the Steelers' way. Combine that with the deficiencies they had, combine that with the poor play at quarterback in this instance at times, right? Because Russ wasn't terrible the whole game. He just made 2 really dumb mistakes.
Yeah. No. I'm with you on the Russell Wilson stuff. I'm going to jump back to that in a second. The overall, just to paint this picture for everybody that's out there. So Minka and Patrick Queen play the full game at 62 plays. Now you have to also remember these guys. What was it, like 80 plays almost? That there were. How many plays did the Eagles run last week? They were on the field, and it was a short week coming back and playing at Baltimore. That's rough. I mean, it's not like the Eagles. The Eagles were probably fresh because they only had to play, their defense only had to play 40 some plays in that last game versus the Steelers defense. And then you got to come around and do all this again on Wednesday. Or Wednesday, as my mom would say. James Pierre, 51 of those 62 plays, 82%. He outsnaps even Cameron Hayward by a play. Corey Trice plays 49. That's 79% of the game for a guy who's never appeared in an NFL game before. Then you have TJ at 77%. Landon Roberts, 76. I'm sorry, but nothing against Landon Roberts, but there's a part of me that just wants Peyton Wilson out there. But I understand that also the coaching is going to say Peyton Wilson is a rookie that they will try to exploit and pick on if he hasn't seen these exotic things that the Ravens get away with every other team that isn't built to play them like the Steelers is. Understandable. Alex Highsmith with 71%. DeMonte Casey, 68%. Keanu Benton, 66%. I don't have a problem with that. Keanu is the future. And capable as well. Dean Lowry plays half the game. That's a problem.
That's a lot. That's a problem.
Isaiah Loudermilk playing 37% could also be a problem. Peyton Wilson plays 35%. Mont Adams returning. Hasn't been out there. What kind of football shape's he in? 34%. Nick Herbig plays 31%. Cam Sutton, 31%. Beanie Bishop, 27%. Joey Porter, only 26%. Preston Smith, 21%. And then Mark Robinson, I believe. I mean, I got to go back and look. Has Mark Robinson appeared in another game the entire season other than special teams? I can't say that. I don't think so. I don't think so either. And I'd have to double check on that. And what also happens is when you get guys that get hurt in these situations, I think Tyler Matakevich got dinged too. So now you have Corey Trice doing double duty because he's playing special teams and playing on deep. These guys don't get a break,
Yeah.
When this game's going south is, I hate to disparage the good name of Chris Boswell, but when Chris Boswell commits a penalty and has an error in the way that he does, you just know it's that sinking feeling of, man, this is just not
our game.
Yeah, it's not going to go the way that we'd like it to. Slow start for the Steelers again, right out the gate. 3 plays, 8 yards, punt. Just not the way that you want it to go. At least the Ravens got hampered pretty early. They had the punt on their first possession, so both teams trade punts. Then both teams trade touchdowns. Great answer, I think, Steelers offensively. And then it kind of it goes all over the place.
In that first set of series, was there not a fumble on the Ravens side that they recovered?
Yeah. So what ended up, there was a few different few different instances, as you mentioned. That would have been the strip sack from Alex Highsmith on second and 10.
So that's the first opportunity.
Yes.
That goes our way. All of a sudden, the game has changed again. First of all, and I know other people have said this, that gets in Lamar's head. What the hell do I have to do? If they lose that fumble, that at the beginning of the game, that is going to get in his head, right? It's going to get in the Ravens' head. They're going to be like, oh, crap, here we go again. But they recover it, changes the dynamic. Also, if that flips, we get the ball, we're in good position, and we score, changes the dynamic of the game.
Absolutely.
So that's opportunity one completely lost. Right.
Mm-hmm. True or false? True or false? If the way a team calls plays is going to change based on if they're in the lead or trailing.
True.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? And a lot of people are going to get on Arthur Smith in cases for this game. The defense, they had their struggles. They gave up just gobs of yards. I mean, 162 yards, Derrick Henry. They faced Saquon. They're struggling to stop. Well, I mean, they stopped Saquon for the most part, right? But they're struggling in different cases here. 220 yards to the Ravens on the ground is just it's sick.
That's Deshaun Elliott, right?
Yeah.
That's the lack of run support from your secondary, and just other problems associated with it. Lack of communication, just not playing gap in integrity the right way. They just had a bad game. I'm almost willing to wash this game from the defensive side simply because of the number of bodies that were missing.
Yeah, I mean, you got the same thing on offense too, though. I mean, you've got Calvin Austin as your wide receiver one. You got Jaylen Warren, 40 plays to Najee Harris, only having 17. Scotty Miller had 26 and Mike Williams 22. You bring Mike Williams in. We've been saying it. It looked like he was doing something out there, but it wasn't enough. And so you put a lot on the shoulders of your veteran quarterback. And I'm going to ride with them, Was Russ a cause? Absolutely. There was like this graphic, I think one of the beat writers actually tweeted out. It was in a different game yesterday on the Sunday slate, and it said slide. It had this big box. It was like the zone of which they need to slide. And I actually thought he was all right. I thought he was going to get in. Oh, man. That Washington, wherever the hell the Ravens find some of these guys, just kind of like ticks me off because they have no business finding good players when their defense was stinketh, and then they find somebody like some reserve on the bench that's playing like way above this expected entry level from the draft and everything else. You know what I mean? As this guy's supposed to be a bum for all intents and purposes. We talk about James Pierre, very similar, kind of like that. So Russ losing that one was huge. That's a 14-point swing right there.
Very
because
big.
Then you get the touchdown there, and it goes in the other direction.
Yeah, and the thing that's concerning, this is 2 weeks in a row that they've given up 90-plus yard drives. That's concerning. I get it. The defense is exhausted, especially in the Eagles game. They're going to be tired a little bit, but not so much in this game. This game, it's different reasons, lack of depth, lack of starting players. But, man, yeah, that is a huge switch. That fumble, and I know what Russ said. I thought I could get in. Other people, no, slide. You see a guy slide. Preserve it. You've already got the first down. You got a shot to score. Preserve it. Don't take the chance. Plus, he got crushed.
Yeah, he did.
The secondary problem is we can't afford your ass to get hurt. Justin Fields is already not playing. You got to stay healthy, my friend.
Dude, I had that very sinking feeling, the very same thought of how many times have backup quarterbacks played in these games on either side of the ball. And, we've seen Mason Rudolph get cracked. We saw Kenny Pickett get knocked out of these games. Like, even Ben. I didn't want to see any more of that. So it's like, Russ, get on the ground there. It is a swing. It feels like much the same way like that Eagles game did before, because it's like you have these opportunities where they still have to play almost perfect football, but in this case, they were forcing some turnovers. And if they got the ball the other way, because then you got the muff punt after you didn't get anything off of the, you almost got it back basically. Right. And you didn't. So the offense just being a little slow. Didn't help with the possessions. They end up, though, in a pretty decent spot because the Steelers are only down 17-10 going into the locker room after Justin Tucker and Chris Boswell trade 51-yard field goals, which was kind of cool. The Steelers come out and they score. They have 8 plays, 88 yards. Cordero Patterson, they knot it all up at 17 apiece, and that was it from there, man. It's just it's another one where it just collapses from there. I really thought, hey, we're here, let's ride. You get the ball back to start the half, and it just I understand when it came out from the half, it was just like, oh great, three and out basically. Ravens got some yards, 6 plays, 35 yards on that series that they had, but then they didn't really stop them. They did get the interception that comes back around after
only to give it right back.
Yeah.
Plus, give it right back plus points.
Yeah, they give it right back on a pick 6. The ball was thrown behind. There's no defense of that, but it was nice to see Minka make a big play. You know, he wanted to try and find the end zone right away too on this play. He did. He was a man possessed, and it's unfortunate. And you see what, like, the Steelers kind of, I feel like they folded. It's like one of those chairs you're putting out to reserve your parking space around the Pittsburgh area. You go for it on like 4th down one time and you don't another. I understand you've been giving up, you've been bleeding. You want to stop the bleeding, but at this point you've also said we're not even going to try and come back from this, and that was the end of that. 11 plays, 81 yards that ends in that field goal. It's just the Ravens' drives were just killers the whole time. There was no 3 and outs. You got the end of the game where they knelt. That doesn't count for anything. You had 7 plays, 28 yards, 6 for 41, 5 for 12. That's about the closest they got there. 881. Ugh. Gross with a touchdown. 10 for 39 and a field goal. 9 for 35, 6 for 60, 2 for 44. 11 for 81, a killer there, and that was 6 minutes, and that was in the 4th quarter, and that's when you know it's just like, yeah, you have a little bit of time. Tom Brady, man, he could just shut up at any point on that broadcast. He was just not good. Like, he was like, well, there's some time, but there's not a lot of time, and then did he call him Najee Davenport? I don't know. Najee Harris. Somebody said that.
I stopped listening. At some point, I just start trying to filter him out because he's so obnoxious. My wife, watching parts of the game, is like, did he just say he was great? Or that he like, she started focusing on the things that he says that are still trying to portray him as, I was amazing, I was this. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. I can't listen to him anymore. So please don't even highlight that for me. I already am so fed up with the early commercials where they're like, the greatest quarterback ever to play the game is going to be an announcer now, and he still has things to do in football. Shut up. Just shut up. There's a point I want to make, though, that I noticed and have been noticing, right? Here's the thing. They are just not as good without George Pickens. And of course you're not going to be, but and all credit to Calvin Austin III. He had a nice game. He made some great catches. It was impressive. It doesn't matter until he's doing it consistently in every game because nobody's respecting it. They are a little afraid of George Pickens, and defense plays differently. It opens up so much more stuff when Pickens is in the game. Without George Pickens, we have now seen it for 3 games in a row. They do not have an answer. They do not have anything that scares anybody, even though there may be reasons for them to be scared. It's just not consistently enough to do the same things. Russ is not as good. His stats are down without Pickens. They don't have those big chunk plays to the same extent that they got with Pickens. It's just not the same team with George Pickens on the sideline. So I don't know if Pickens is going to be back for this game on Wednesday or not. As Tomlin said in his press conference yesterday, he didn't even have information on Joey. We don't know anything yet about anybody. The door is open for all the other people, but it's unlikely that Joey gets back. And it's unlikely that number 15, Ben, gets back, with a hip injury, since he wasn't able to go. And that's unfortunate because he's been a contributor. Much more so than since we started making fun of him at the beginning of the thing for his weird last name.
Skowronek is he's a scrappy player. I mean, and he he goes out and you're just like, oh, here we go. You know what I mean? Like, and not in a good way. Here we go. He caught that one pass, and I'm like, hey, this guy might actually start to be, more like game planned into this because, he's a special teams guy. But if you could offer even just a little bit more, all the more power to you. And he's 6'3", 224, so he's got a little bit more size than some of the other receivers, like a Calvin. I mean, Calvin Austin, there was one where he got kind of just, they blew at him and he fell over. But Calvin Austin's got some hands, he's got some wheels, he got some speed. I know that one ball, Russ was trying to go. That's the one I don't get too, man. You go on fourth down, you go for, you try and go for all the marbles.
I didn't like that play call.
I didn't like that either. And the third down call into that, like,
and that was not on Calvin, by the way.
Yeah,
Russ's
I know that.
throw was off. It was off. It was just not a good throw.
Yeah, you're right.
Maybe that's the wind, because there was wind to swirling. I don't know. But the ball was off. You hit him. That ball is on time and on target, then it works. And everybody's like, oh, my God. This is, again, just another example of this game was not going their way.
No, it wasn't going their way. You know what else? I have to bring it up real quick, too. But I was going to mention before we close the book on this and just look a little ahead at the Chiefs here. These are all the players who were targeted in this game with the pass. Calvin Austin led everyone, 4 catches, 65 yards. Jaylen Warren, 5 for 44. They need a little bit more of that. Warren nearly topped the 100 all-purpose yards. He ran also 12 times 48, a 4.0 average. Najee was getting there too, 9 for 42 with 4.7. Just, I don't know. They kind of, you get behind and you have to throw the ball some more. Russ threw 33 times. They only ran it 24. That is not conducive to winning AFC North football. All of these teams, I think, with the exception maybe the Bengals, they might be the only team that gets away with it, but they also have to score 40 points and throw the ball with Burrow. Jefferson, 2 for 27. Ben Skoranek, 2 for 25. Mike Williams, 3 for 24. Freiermuth, 3 for 16. Freiermuth, you'd like to see him get more involved. Then you have Cordero Patterson, Connor Hayward, Michael Pruitt, all with a catch. 2 of those guys caught touchdown passes. Najee Harris did not catch the one ball that hit the ground on the one screen pass. So those are some names you don't want to see involved. It's nice that you could spread the ball around, but if you're doing it just for the sake of doing it, if you're trying to game plan it because you think you're going to catch the Ravens sleeping, by all means, great. You know what I mean? But come on. Like some guys like Freiermuth or Williams, I don't know what you do. It's not like, you get in a red area and Calvin Austin is your main target unless you're going to do like a quick slant or anything like that, which there aren't a lot of those, but I was calling for one, and there definitely was one that came. It might have been Freiermuth that actually caught one of them and it moved the chains. I was like, yay, finally, you know what I mean? So kind of closing the book on this game. Not one of Russell's best games, but still 22 of 33 wasn't too shabby. Just a really costly pick 6 that really put the nail in the coffin for that game, unfortunately.
Yeah, just it was a game that when they didn't get that first fumble, you kind of went, it's maybe not going to go our way.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's unfortunate. You're just like, oh, ball's on the floor. You're trying to create some splash plays. You nearly get it. I mean, I don't know, man. It's offensive line at times, letting Kyle Van Noy just kind of like do whatever he wanted. There's got to be a little more in the trenches. That's where they really struggle as well. But you still don't have like a top flight offense here. Quarterback might be a solved issue. You needed another wide receiver. We know that they wanted another wide receiver. They went after everyone that was available as a wide receiver. Plus, you drafted one that's never gotten on the field this year, which you have no idea as to how Roman Wilson may have contributed. And it doesn't look like he ever will, because I know Tomlin isn't. This is postseason from here on out. There's no way that guy's getting on the field unless they sit people in the final game with the Bengals, which doesn't look like it's going. That's a possibility unless the Ravens
I don't even think it's even a possibility unless the Ravens, unless we win Wednesday and the Ravens lose.
Yes,
that's the only way we sit anybody against the Bengals.
Yes, correct. And the Bengals are still clawing and biting and trying to get into that. They're on the outside looking in as far as a playoff window.
Got to be big Broncos fans this weekend.
Yeah. Well, you know what though? Steelers playing all these short weeks. they get to heal up if that game actually has to mean a whole lot too. So that's not good news for the Bengals playing, and the Steelers get to play back to back at home, which is kind of nice as well. But I guess moving on, I think there was something else I was going to mention, and it kind of like whoop, went away. But as well as the Steelers have played, I think where I was going was like you were saying with George Pickens. It's unfortunate. You hope he could be back. He's obviously, you can't lose like your top receiver, your top playmaking threat, and do the standard is the standard thing. And I've already done the standard thing with Mason McCormick playing on the offensive line, and we question, Zach Frazier should have been the starter, we all think, but we know how Tomlin handles rookies. Was he ready? I think he's done very well. But Broderick Jones is still playing right tackle instead of having Troy Fontano. You lose James Daniels. There's things like that they've had to weather the whole season. Now you're going even further down, like, this depth chart in some areas, and it's unfortunate. So another team they've gotten away with this too is the Chiefs, defending champions back to back, looking for a three-peat. Mahomes he's been good. He's still Mahomes, right? But they haven't had to rely on him solely all the time, and when they do, he's able to get it done. Didn't look like his ankle hurt him whatsoever, this ankle sprain or whatever he was playing with. Don't forget that with TJ Watt too, playing with the bad wheel and trying to put it out there. But the Chiefs, Tomlin mentioned this in his press conference, this is a team that, they just talk about first-round picks and guys that bust out. Clyde Edwards-Helaire just cut from this team because they found a guy like in the 7th round, like Isaiah Pacheco, or they brought Kareem Hunt back, and then Hunt, he had a team high 55 yards rushing and a touchdown last weekend against the Texans. So all the Christmas teams with their little candy cane patch, they get now we get to switch off, and it's just do a round robin and then do the last one. We play the Texans too. Everybody gets to do it, but wide receiver wise, like they've been able to, they traded for DeAndre Hopkins. We are familiar with Juju Smith-Schuster. They got a rookie in Xavier Worthy that everybody's like,
that's the one that scares me right now.
And he had
I'm
a team
just
high.
telling you.
He had the team high too. He had a TD against the Texans. So he caught 7 passes for 65 yards. But you've got some big play guys that with DeAndre Hopkins, you still got Juju Smith-Schuster. Hollywood Brown's back now, finally playing for them. All of a sudden, they went from a team that didn't have receivers to now they've got a whole bunch of different threats, along with Travis Kelce, who could do a lot of damage. So the Steelers definitely need guys like Deshaun Elliott back, Larry Ogunjobi back. If you get Pickens back on offense, missing Joey Porter is going to be rough. But if you could at least Dante Jackson back in there, maybe they work Cameron Sutton into playing a little bit on the boundary again where he has in the past. And maybe you don't lose so much there in the whole grand scheme of things. You're probably not anticipating losing not only Jackson but Porter when you play the Ravens. Now, you don't have a lot of prep time. We don't have real injury reports. They have like the projected because it's such a short week. All you can hope for is that all the guys that missed the game or the last game or two are now, they've had enough time to rest up as almost a normal week of football and be able to play in this one. Because this one, Brian, even though there's like a tie in record, the Steelers, they got the head-to-head, they got the conference. If they have the common opponent, if they can put out the Chiefs, then the AFC North can still be theirs, provided they win out.
Yeah. There's 2 ways that they win the North. Win out. They win both these games coming up, then they've won the North. Forget it. Everything else is moot. If they win against the Chiefs and the Ravens lose against the Texans, they win the North because then it doesn't matter again. But they have to win. In order to win the North, they have to win this game. And that's just a necessity. I think I could be wrong. They could lose this game if the Ravens lose as well, beat Cincinnati and still win the North. Because I think they still get the tiebreaker with the Ravens regardless. So that may be another avenue. But the easy way, or nothing's easy at this point, the primary way is they really have to focus on winning out, because then it doesn't matter what anybody else does, right? It is still controllable by them. Win the last 2 games, they are the AFC North champions. They finally get a home playoff game after 100,000 years of not having one, and we go from there.
Yeah, and this one we're going to hear complaining in other ways. You need Netflix to watch this one unless you're in the local area.
But the map will be all the same color.
we could do the same. We could do like a maps with Brian thing again, but it is the entire entire thing. I'm stuttering over here just a little bit because I get tired of pulling up Pro Football Reference. I like Google Chrome changed this thing with ads. It's like all these videos start playing, and all I want to do is pull up some Patrick Mahomes stats, and it like freezes. I've got a good machine here, you know what I mean? And it's like it freezes up things. So sometimes when you hear me kind of like pause and whatever, I'm not like lost. I'm just kind of like, why the hell is this thing doing this? And it's driving me crazy. So, okay. So Patrick Mahomes has it, he's still over 3,600 yards, just 23 touchdowns with only 2 games to go this year. It's not been the biggest showing for him. He's gotten better recently, but he's also played against maybe a little more subpar talent, but he hasn't thrown a whole lot of interceptions over the last not an interception at all over the last 5 games, but also consider that was against the Panthers, Raiders, the Chargers, who have all of a sudden had the wheels come off their defense too, the Cleveland Browns, and then the Houston Texans. So he's been protecting the football. He's been pretty sharp with that. But prior to all of that, it was he was almost looking to be on pace for the most that he's actually thrown in a season, which would have been last year with 14, which is kind of uncanny. He has 11 through 3 games. He has been sacked 36 times, which is actually on pace for him to be a lot more than usual as well. And with a bum ankle, it's those tackles that they have. Juwan Taylor, they brought in DJ Humphries that they signed. And, he was hurt, and some people complained about that. I think they could be had, right, with guys like TJ and Herbig and Alex Highsmith. So I think if you put pressure on Mahomes, and he's capable of doing all kind of magic, but you need the guys in the secondary. You need guys like Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson to be able to cover, or else guys like Kelsey are just going to tear you apart.
Yeah, it's a game they can win. I mean, I switched. I may switch back if the injury report looks the same as it did last week, because they're not. Look, they don't have Dante Jackson. They don't have Elliott. They don't have Joey. Those 3 pieces are missing. They're not winning this game. I'm going to tell you, they're not.
Yeah,
Mahomes is going to pick the rest of that secondary apart.
Agreed.
It's just too much to expect. But if they've got at least, if Joey is the only absence, right, I think they can find ways to do what they need to do. Still got to get pressure on him. TJ has to be a little more recovered. Alex has to ball out. Nick has to ball out. They've got to play top flight Steelers football. They've got to get turnovers, and they can't turn the ball over. If those things occur, they can win this game. And you move on to the next one. You get a nice little break, and then you got the Bengals game, which hopefully will mean nothing to the Bengals at that point, and they will maybe rest players to avoid potential injuries at the end of the season that are just completely pointless. But we'll wait and see. They'll probably all play because they'll just want to beat us, but we'll see.
I mean, the Chiefs got the big target on their back too. And I should mention that DJ Humphries didn't play in the last game either because of a hamstring, so they may even be down. Even bringing him in to try and be one of the starting tackles. But whatever else we have is just projections at this point. The other tackle, offensive tackle, Taylor, was also a guy that was on the injury report last week. I can only go by what was previous or any previous injuries. He did play. Yeah. He was a full participant. By the numbers, just real quick, these teams match up actually pretty good, with the exception of Kansas City 6-8-1 against the spread this year. So that spread is the Chiefs are -2.5, which it's a very close number when you're talking about that. Now, I know the Steelers aren't getting that home field advantage. They are a 43 over under. So,
well, how could anybody? I mean, the Chiefs are 14-1. How can anybody pick against them? Right?
I know.
Vegas should just be going. I don't know how they'll win, but they'll win.
But they'll win, and we'll give 2.5 points or whatever, and that'll be enough. You've got the Steelers are 12th in scoring, 23.5 points per game on offense. The Chiefs are 23.7. They're 11th, so they're real neck and neck there. Points allowed is in the same category. Kansas City now at 18.5. Steelers bumped to 19.9. That's respectively. The Chiefs are 3rd defensively. Points scored. Steelers are 6th. Takeaway differential, Steelers are still among the best in the league. They're second with a +17. Kansas City's near the middle of the pack, a +4. Passing offenses, 12th and 25th, rushing offensive 15th and 11th. So the Steelers got the Chiefs numbers first in this column, so that's the way I got to go with it. But they're very almost neck and neck as far as their offenses are concerned. Passing yards only 225 per game for the Chiefs. That's 27 yards more than the Steelers, even though the Steelers are near the bottom. That's very un-Chiefs like you would think, or an Andy Reid offense. And then defensively is where the Chiefs have been markedly improved, and the reason they're winning a lot of these close games. Defensively, they only allow 215 against the pass. The Steelers allow 220. That's about somewhere near the 17th and 20th in the league. Run defense, Kansas City allows 91. Steelers allow 102. It's 3rd and 7th, and a lot of that skewed from Derrick Henry piling on 160. So these teams really do match up pretty well. It's going to be down to the quarterbacks. It's going to be down to the turnover ratios, or you got to win the takeaway battle. You can't lose the takeaway battle against teams like this, like the Baltimore Ravens. That's where I see it, and that's about all the more I got to say about this, because there's not a whole lot else we could like dictate here. We know who the Chiefs are for the most part. You're going to see some names like Chris Jones and George Karlaftis, and he got the one corner that's been playing out of his mind too, Trent McDuffie. I mean, they've got some guys on defense that could play. They've got to be able to handle business. They got to be able to handle business at home. Let's hope that the home crowd, they're all there. It's going to be a different atmosphere, because a lot of people won't be going because it's, Christmas Day and they're selling their tickets and everything like that. Hopefully not just the Chiefs fans that'll be traveling. So we shall see how this turns out. I agree with you, Brian. They need all of these players, these injured players, to return. I think Deshaun Elliott is so much more critical. You remember the days of
big time.
I mean, we
Ryan
were looking.
Clark.
We were looking back in the day. This may have been pre-SCU. It's definitely pre our podcast days, but it was like, Polamalu was just at the end there, and then you're trying to replace him, and then you had guys like Will Allen that were floating around in there, and then Mike Mitchell, and we just know you need 2 good safeties for this defensive scheme to work well. Nothing against DeMonte Casey, but then he's trying to help where you've got Corey Trice, and Trice bit on a couple different plays, and it's a hard learning experience for him, because a lot of people are high on him. I don't know what to think necessarily. Low round pick, but a guy, because of injury history, was probably a low round pick too. Physical talents are all there.
Yeah, physical talents are there. Lack of experience is also there. I don't believe that was his debut game. I feel like he got an interception sometime or in another game.
And that's what they said on.
I know, and when they said it, I went, I think you're wrong.
They say a lot of stuff that's wrong. They get names wrong, and just it's And
I do think they came back and actually corrected themselves and said, okay, this is not his debut game, but he has very little experience, which that's correct.
That is correct. Let me see here. Yeah, I might be saying it wrong too. And people didn't watch the whole show are going to be like, oh, hey, so he's played in 4 games, but I think that might have been, let me see, 77 snaps is what we're seeing.
Does he have a pick?
Does he have a pick? Let me pass defense. So I might have just been going on what they've been saying too, but looking at the game logs, he got in. He played against the Denver Broncos earlier in the year, so he actually did get logs. Oh, he did. He had to pick against the Broncos. There you go.
There you go. I thought I remembered that.
Yep. You remembered that correctly.
That was one of those games I didn't get to watch because I was in Scotland.
Oh yeah, and you remembered it, and I didn't. I tell you what, sometimes all of it muddles together. It's unfortunate. I did on the announcers. I tried to ignore it because there was stuff that was being said, and I'm just yelling at the TV. I'm like, "That's not right. That's not his name, you moron!" Like, there's all kinds of stuff, and I'm just like, there was one I was watching
who are the announcers for Netflix?
Oh my goodness, I don't know, but I could get you that info real quick. I'm trying to think of who I was just watching. They mentioned something about someone's alternate uniforms or first time wearing it. I think the Bills, like with all the red. And I'm like, they wore those years ago. That was that infamous color rush game for us red-green colorblind people against the Jets, where the Bills were head to toe in red and the Jets were head to toe in green, and it just looked like a bunch of dark blobs moving around on a dark green turf field. So Let's see here. Who do we got covering this game? I can't imagine it's anybody good, but it might be wrong. No, we didn't get an update yet from the Steelers PR department, so I guess we'll find that out later. They still got last week's release up, so unfortunately,
Probably
don't
Beavis
have
and
that yet.
Butthead.
I really don't know who they've got to cover this game.
He said ball.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. The old Google search might be, or the DuckDuckGo. So let's see, Christmas games, broadcasters. Let's see who we've got. The Los Angeles hosts, the Pittsburgh hosts, ESPN host Laura Rutledge, NFL analyst at NBC Devin McCourty and Jason McCourty. They got the McCourty twins covering this game, so that'll be interesting. And then Ian Eagle, okay. And Nate Burleson and JJ Watt. So I think we're gonna have to pull back on making fun of this. Netflix pulling out the big guns. And JJ, I don't know that I've seen JJ do color commentary, but I'm all in.
No,
I'm all in on the Dick's Sporting Goods holiday.
Let's see if TJ can get a sack. Let's just listen to TJ go sack. Yeah, JJ, yeah, sack.
Yeah, I love the Dick's Sporting Goods commercial with the whole Watt family, and I'm pretty sure that's his real mom and dad in that ad too. So
yeah, it is.
It's
it's very funny.
And they got the station wagon. It looks just like right out of.
I also
Christmas
enjoy
Vacation.
the Peloton one with it's like JJ, TJ, Mom. Yeah, I enjoy both those.
That's pretty good, man. Yeah, Ian Eagle's great, but he doesn't have Charles Davis there, so we'll see what kind of chemistry he has. Nate Burleson's great too. I always think about how like he bounced around the NFL and then. He ended up on CBS this morning, or the morning show that they do during the week. Like that's Michael Strahan type stuff, but he doesn't have a Michael Strahan type career to lean back on and leverage like a Tom Brady or somebody like this. You know what I mean? So I was like, it's just incredible what he's been able to do. Just I wonder what his major was in college. I'm gonna have to find that out. So pretty interesting. The Ravens get the package deal. So I guess the nepotism and maybe the family package, because you get the McCourty twins, I guess, in the analyst, whatever we want to call it. I don't know if they'll be on the field or in a studio, but you got Noah Eagle doing the Ravens and Texans game. This must be Ian's I'm gonna assume son, maybe. I don't know. I think I've seen him around, and he's better than Collinsworth's boy. And then Greg Olson is paired with him, along with Jamie Ertl and Steve Weish on the sideline. So pretty decent. I wonder if they're like leveraging it sounds like, or looks like they might be leveraging one of the major networks to send their camera crews around, much in the way NFL Network was using Fox and doing that split back in the years past. And these games, like I said, they're supposed to have more cameras because it's the big primetime games and whatnot. So we'll see. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and a happy Festivus for the rest of us, my friend Brian. Thank you for joining me once again. Yes, and
ditto. And just so, we're gonna beat Oregon.
Ooh, man, I'll tell you what. I was nervous. I think I texted you going into the college football playoff stuff.
Well, they let him hang around in that first half. And then the second half came out and they said, the hell with this.
Yeah, they did. I was at that first half. I was just like, man, I'm like, this would be just a devastating day of football if Tennessee ends up coming back. So I did enjoy
Caleb Downs. I'm putting it out there. Caleb Downs, need him in a black and gold uniform, and Travion Henderson, need him in a black and gold uniform. Oh, that's it. There you go.
Henderson's such an interesting career trajectory.
Will Howard as a third-round pick, I kind of like too.
Yeah, you got to understand when Brian does the fantasy football stuff, he picks all Steelers. And I'm in my semifinal, and I'm not going to lie, Derrick Henry's performance did help aid me. I'm winning, and I'm going in tonight with Josh Jacobs, so hoping to secure my second straight championship game. I don't think I won it last year, but I won it like 2 or 3 years ago. So some bragging rights in this one. So, it sucks, but Brian will have us drafting all the Buckeyes, just like he drafts all the Steelers for fantasy. I say it sucks.
Well, by the time I do mock draft insanity, I'll just draft every player.
I just say it sucks because, like, I stick with AFC North ball a lot of times. Like, I've got Joe Burrow on my roster. Baker Mayfield was criminally underdrafted in fantasy. I've got him on there too. I took Derrick Henry just because it's like Derrick Henry, how many guys are going to get the football that volume in a run first type offense? It's like, that's just a no brainer to me. And but I got Najee, I got George Pickens. That's been hurting me. I wasn't able to play him. So I have some Steelers. I had Steelers defense too, which wasn't, the most.
That didn't help you any this last weekend or last 2 weekends, really.
No, it hasn't. Not when you're in fantasy playoffs, my friend. But that'll do it for us, folks. We'll be back around, I don't know, 26, 27, somewhere later in the week. And we'll see what the aftermath and fallout is from this Steelers game hosting the Kansas City Chiefs Christmas Day. It's on Netflix. It is 1 o'clock. Yes, 1 o'clock game. So check it out then, and we'll be back to you. But before that, again, happy holidays, however you may celebrate. Merry Christmas for me. That's how I celebrate. Festivus for the rest of us. From Brian, we had an airing of grievances. We'll have some more airing of grievances maybe to come. So
someday we'll do a live stream of the feats of strength.
Maybe we'll have to do that during the draft. But anyways, until next time, folks, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. As always, and especially so in this holiday season, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.